All right. Once again, thank you for joining us. And I'm Jesse Carlson. I'm an editor at Hardware Retailing at the Hardware Retailing magazine, and I'm joined by Jamie Cook, who I'll be sharing the presentation with. We're going to be talking about merchandising from beyond is the title of our webinar today. And as we dive into this, first I just want to mention this is a webinar from the North American Retail Hardware Association, and it's of course sponsored by our vendor partners who are critical partners in helping us provide this type of information to you, our retailers. Hardware Retailing, the magazine, which we produce here, which you should get in your mailbox every month, and as well as Planet DIY, which is our latest marketing campaign. If you don't know much about it, check out planetdiy.com. So now we're just going to dive right in, and before we get into the main part of this, I just want to kind of set the groundwork for what we're going to talk about today. Today's webinar is Merchandising from Beyond. We're going to be looking at stores from beyond the hardware industry. We're going to take you on a trip to the mall. We're going to take you on a shopping trip today, and we're going to, where we normally would be looking at pictures from hardware stores, we're going to look at pictures from everyone else in the industry, the shopping malls, the high-end clothing stores, the grocery stores, the electronic stores, and we're going to be looking at what they are doing in merchandising. Well, why should we pay attention to them? Well, first let's think about your business. Why do customers shop your store? Well, obviously they want to come there just so they can fix their house. But it's not just fixing that they want to do. Sometimes there's those want items. Of course, they need to fix something. They need to fix the toilet, but they may want to paint the room. And there's those discretionary dollars that you're also competing for. As the economy is getting tighter and money is tighter, people are watching what they spend. They're watching more closely where they spend those discretionary dollars. And so it's become more competitive. You're not just competing against the Home Depot down the street or the hardware store down the street. You're competing against a lot more other retailers for those discretionary dollars. So the second point to think about is, who is your competition? Well, it could be the electronics store, it could be the high-end clothing store, it could be the bookstore. Where else may they choose to spend those valuable want dollars elsewhere? So what about those other retailers? We're going to be thinking about those other retailers. Why would customers want to shop there? Well, today's consumer doesn't measure you against just other home improvement retailers. They're going to measure you against everyone they visited. When they go into a nice high-end store somewhere it's clean, it's brightly lit, it has good merchandising, it's entertaining, that's the bar. Now the bar has been set very high for a retailing experience. So when they come into your store, they're going to be measuring you, whether it's conscious or not. They're going to be measuring you against those other retailers. So it behooves us to think about other retailers and what they are doing and how they've raised the bar. The most important part of the shopping experience is merchandising, and merchandising really is that first impression. That's how you make the sale. That's a good merchandising display, as we all know, can make or break a sale. It's the first impression of your store when a customer walks in. It can be the first impression of a new product. It goes a long way to selling not just your store, but all the products in it. So what we want to do today is look at those outside of the hardware industry and see what they're doing, and see what kind of merchandising they are doing to be so progressive. We're not saying you have to be just like these other retailers, but there's a lot that we can learn from them, and we hope that even if you take just a few ideas away from today's webinar, it's been worth your time. So what we're going to do is we're going to take you on this trip that we took. We went out to different stores, we took some photos, we tried to find those retailers outside of the home improvement industry that were doing a great job of merchandising, and we're going to look at some examples and see maybe how they can apply to your store. If you want more information on this, this is basically, we've taken many of these photos from our October cover story in Hardware Retailing. We have a lot more photos here as well, and if you can't stay for the whole thing, or if you know someone else who would like to see them, it will be available in the next coming days on nrha.org. You can also see a slideshow of an interview we did with Larry Whitley, who's at Bass Pro Shops, and he has a lot of good pictures that we can walk you through. But before we start, I'm going to turn it over to Jamie, and she's going to give you a few more ideas about how you can use all the information we're going to give you today.
Thanks, Jesse. We did do a lot of research with this particular project. We went outside our industry. We interviewed a lot of people. We looked at a lot of different articles about best practices. Like Jesse said, all of these ideas can really be incorporated into your store. But as we were talking about some of the outside-of-the-box ideas and we were looking at these pictures, we realized that there are some best practices to translating it down to your store or into our industry. One man I interviewed was Mark Reed, who works with Retail Integrity Merchandising Solutions, which is a retail service consultancy based in Arkansas, and he had a lot of great ideas for transforming some of those ideas that maybe you see in the Bass Pro or you see in a large JCPenney store and translating that into your own independent outlet. So let's just go over a couple of those best practices before we go ahead and unveil all the photos that we have for you. One of the first and easiest things to do is to look at your stores and figure out who your primary customer is first. Typically, customers are attracted to a certain type of merchandising. So say that you have a particularly tech-savvy market. They might be more attracted to some merchandising that you might find in Best Buy or Apple. Now, maybe you have a smaller, maybe you operate out of a smaller rural town, or your customers just kind of like that smaller Cracker Barrel feel. Well, then you want to probably avoid those tech-savvy strategies because they might be intimidated by those kind of strategies. So just the basic thing is to figure out who you're really catering to when you're talking about merchandising. It's a pretty basic business principle. The next idea, in the same breath, I'm going to say don't limit yourself. While you want to pick strategies that appeal to your particular customer, don't let that be your boundary. Maybe put in one or two of those out-of-the-box ideas. Maybe put in one or two technical merchandising strategies, despite the fact that your customers aren't used to it, just to kind of get the buzz going, the talk going, and to present yourself as a competitor for that discretionary spending. The next idea is going to be scaling your ideas to your store. So Jess is going to talk a lot about Bass Pro as he shows you some of their stores, but a lot of these stores, like Bass Pro, do these extravagant large-scale projects, such as creating trees in their store or mountains or waterfalls. And while these are great and these are awesome inspirations, it might not be something that you would want or could feasibly do in your store. And that's okay. You can still take that inspiration and kind of tone it down or even build it up, depending on if you want to build up large in your store. Really make sure that you take the ideas and translate them back to your store. With that being said, you want to dilute your brand. So say you see an idea you like and you want to bring it into your store. Awesome. That's what this whole webinar is about. But make sure you input a little bit of yourself or your store into that. Some easy ways to do that are to change out the colors, to have something consistent with your store's signature colors, maybe put some consistent signage throughout the different merchandising techniques, just to make sure that when your customers see the new merchandising that we hope you get inspired to after seeing this webinar, that they know and not where you got the idea from. And finally, go beyond the products. You know, a lot of times when we talk to retailers, they get kind of stuck in the idea that merchandising is simply how your store is laid out or where the products are on the shelf. And it's so much more than that. Merchandising is really about creating an environment through those merchandising strategies. One topic that we use a lot is shoppertainment, which is the idea that today's customers are not out just to buy a product anymore. They're constantly inundated with multimedia everywhere they go. And so when they enter your store, they not only want to buy the product, but they want to be entertained. They want to feel a part of the product. They want to feel connected. So keep these ideas in mind as you see some of these examples that we give you as far as translating it down to your store. So now we get into the fun stuff. We've broken down some of the out-of-the-box ideas that we've taken into several different categories. Obviously, these are not the only merchandising categories out there, and in fact, some of the ideas cross over into multiple categories. But we figured it would be an easy way to break down the enormous amount of photos that we took for you all into some bite-sized pieces. So, the first thing we're going to go over is signage and advertising. And this was particularly one of my favorite parts of this project because I believe, as I talk to retailers, it's an often forgotten part of merchandising. A lot of times you think of advertising as part of your marketing strategy and et cetera. While that's the case, it's also a key component of your merchandising strategy. You really got to integrate your advertising and your signage into your store to keep the content and the message and the brand all consistent. So what are some good examples of this? Here, we stopped by Banana Republic, which is a women, I believe they also have men's clothing store. And what they've done here in their window display is they've integrated a popular medium. If any of you watch Mad Men, which is an awesome show, Banana Republic actually worked with the company to incorporate that theme into one of their women's suit lines. So what kind of effect does that have? Well, first of all, it's an eye-catching window display. It's an eye-catching promotion. It also connects the consumer or the customer to that product and to that line. So what you're doing is you're drawing attention to the different things that attract your customers and creating, again, this lifestyle among your product. Now, there's one thing, a little caveat that I must say. You do have to beware of copyrights with things like this. Definitely check with your legal if you want to do something to this magnitude, but there are definitely some easy ways to kind of bring it down to a level that you might feel more comfortable with or that might not infringe on any legal things. Some of those are invite a local celebrity from your town or high school athletes. Those have been very popular in home improvement stores to create a similar outcome or a similar tone around connecting with your customers in this way. Moving along, we definitely want to talk about technology in merchandising. Technology in stores is one of the easiest and I think most fun ways to really up your buzz about your store. Here in the Apple store, they have a signage in the front of their window, and this man actually follows movement. So as a customer walks by, he actually follows you as you walk by. Now, obviously, Apple is known for that technology, so this fits in. I'm not necessarily saying get a moving piece of signage, although at the last dealer market we were at, we did see several vendors who had this, and the booth was always busy. So again, think outside the limits. But the key to this and the goal that you want to achieve with something like this is attention. Get people talking about something. There were tons of people gathered around the Apple store, and this has been on display for months. So what you want to do is put something like this in high traffic areas, your power aisle, your windows, get people talking. If you're interested in promoting technology in a similar way, but maybe not to this magnitude, you can incorporate the internet. You can incorporate video displays. There are a lot of different degrees to incorporating technology that we'll kind of talk on a little bit further in the webinar. Another really great technique in signage is creating that human connection. And we kind of talked about that a little bit before, but here the North Face, which sells, again, outerwear and athletic wear, did a great job using their signage to connect people to these particular examples. These are athletes that actually use the North Face. They actually use the product. And it gives a little bio about who they are and what they use the North Face products for. And what it does is it creates this lifestyle behind the product. So it's no longer just a jacket. By putting this jacket on, you're becoming, Daniel Woods here. You're becoming this athlete. You are part of that. You're selling a lifestyle. And you may think, oh, this is just, a sign. But really, you're selling more than that with this. And we did see people stopping and reading this. So we definitely feel that there's a validity in this. Jessica and I were talking before the webinar about, well, this is great, but how could a home improvement store utilize this? Jesse had a great idea. If you had contractors maybe that are really, really all-stars in your town, maybe spotlight them, or say you have a weekend warrior that came in, maybe spotlight some of the different projects that the weekend warriors do. Maybe have a customer of the month. It's really easy to do, creates that connection. These are the people that make up your store, that are the people of your store. Even something as simple as employee bios are a great way to show that human connection, that human interaction. With today's world and everybody's using social media and the internet, people want more than just a sales associate. They want to know your store. They want to be a part of your store. So help them do that. Another merchandising technique in the way of signage and advertising that we are seeing increasingly in a lot of stores is this idea of digital signage. No longer is the static signage always enough. Again, today's consumers are constantly inundated. They're watching the TV, they're eating, they're playing on the internet, they're writing a letter, they're playing on their iPad, so they can they multitask. And digital signage really caters to that particular characteristic. You're able to get a multidimensional, dramatic presentation through video. One great thing about digital signage is that it can range from extremely detailed, where we've seen touch screens and we've seen interactivity, and we'll show you all that, or it can be as simple as here in Nordstrom's, they just play a video. This one was particularly for Tom's shoes, and as you can see, the shoe is right next to the video. And it was a very emotional video. It showed how Tom's shoes, how the product was helping people around the world. What's great about this is that it allows the customer to be in control. They can stand and watch this as long as they want, and something emotional like this creates a desire to buy the product, or creates, again, that lifestyle that we've talked so much about. One great tip for home improvement retailers is to check with your vendors. Many of them are offering tapes and promotions like this already. In fact, we talked to some of our board members just last month who said that many of the promotions even include giving you the TVs to play the promotion. So definitely seek out some of that research and see what you can do in terms of kind of upping that static signage. Here, again, we bring the North Face. It's a similar idea with the digital signage. What's cool about this particular setup is that they really presented themselves as a progressive retailer. They show a flat screen. It doesn't take up a lot of real estate. It doesn't distract. The sound was at a very low level, so if the customer wanted to be a part of it, they walked up to it and listened. But yet, they didn't have to. It kind of gives them the option. Again, you want to give the customer the control. So now Jesse's going to kind of move on to some window displays.
Thank you, Jamie. And the next bunch of photos, or the next 3 photos, are going to be about window displays. And, this is one of the first things the customer sees. Window display is your first impression for a lot of customers. That's how you draw the customers in. If you probably have these if you're in a downtown or in a strip mall, you may have these big windows that you can use. These are great places for seasonal items, for new items, for promotions. It really sets the mood for your store, and of course it's important not to let these go stale, and of course it's even more important not to use this space as a storage space. I know I've been to a few stores where it seems like that's where they put all the extra merchandise that they didn't know what to do with, and so window displays have to be clean and have to be creative. And here's a few that we found. Whole Foods. This obviously they're a grocery store and they have a specific clientele in mind. You can see they have kind of a chalkboard effect with a story and some of their products. They're using their display to tell a story about their store. They're connecting their products with a story, and they're using this to reinforce their brand. They're really targeting their customer, and a customer who walks by, who looks at this window display, should be able to tell a lot about the store just by looking at the window. And when you go in, it's reinforced throughout the store. It doesn't stop at the window. It's important to make sure that the mood, the tone, the brand that you set at the beginning is carried through to the very last aisle in the store. Here's the Apple Store again. Can't hardly say enough about the innovation that Apple has in their stores. It's a very different kind of window display. It's very simple. It's direct. It's also inexpensive. You got some silver balloons it's kind of it's more of the artistic conceptual concept. It's a little more abstract, and it's design oriented. It's made to appeal to that type of customer who wants the slick, clean Apple product, and so that's the mood that they set in the store window. But it also shows that you don't have to be real elaborate in what you do with your window display. It can be very simple and direct, like this. You can also see the colors in the window carry through to the rest of the store. The silver and carries through. That's one of the Apple colors. Here's another display. This is at Talbot's. It's the clothing store, and it kind of takes an unusual twist on what you'd expect to see from a window. You expect to see the whole mannequin, but they've shown you the bottom half, and the top half is covered up by a sign with different, it's with different words, and it's showing you the diversity of the products that they have to offer. So think about doing something different, maybe taking an unexpected twist on what the customers would expect to see in the window, and then doing something a little different to draw their attention. Next is unique racking displays, and I'll turn it back over to Jamie.
Yeah, that was a cool picture that Jesse just showed. I actually took that picture and was prompted to buy a pair of those jeans, so I can assure you the display works really well. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about unique racking displays. I talk with retailers all the time. We go to a lot of these dealer markets, and you can pump some great amount of money into racking. And obviously you're going to need specialized racking for certain things like lumber and stuff. But what we're going to show you here are some maybe cheaper ideas and maybe some more creative ideas that if somebody told me before I saw these examples, I would never have believed them. But maybe thinking about some of these alternatives could be a cost-effective way to kind of create that aesthetic appeal, like Jesse was talking about, that design, that feel, and that differentiation that maybe at the store down the street doesn't have. The first one that we saw was at a store called Anthropologie, which is a clothing and accessories store. And what they did was they just created simple wood blocks and then mounted them on the wall with some metal racking or metal shelving units. What's cool about this and why I was particularly attracted to this particular display was because it was a lot of things that you're already going to find in your home improvement store. So Anthropologie kind of goes on this raw feeling, this raw, reuse, recycle theme. It could just as well work in your store as, build these things, create that idea of building in your store. Great, simple, cost-effective racking system. Again, Anthropologie, they were kind of our all-star here for racking, but they utilize this idea of reusing products. Well, why can't you utilize that in your store? A lot of times your DIYers, especially with the market, the economy the way it is, are going to be looking to reuse stuff. It's okay to kind of branch out into that area. Here, they just use simple drawers, and they use a dresser, a chair. Functionality is a bit mixed on what you can put on a chair hanging on the wall, but it's definitely, when used sparingly or used just in some high traffic areas, something that will create some buzz, some attention, and again, it's going to separate you from your competition who's just using, say, laminate shelving. What I really like about this kind of customized shelving is that you can create it in a way that you have the control. You can decide what you want to stock. You can decide what you want to pay for that particular piece of shelving unit, and guaranteed it's going to be something different than your customers have seen. Okay, the next picture we had to grab quickly. It was in a CVS, but this racking display actually introduces the idea of loss prevention through racking. Here you have a push display, so it's spring-loaded. It helps you keep all of your products up at the front and forward-facing, which is great. Gravity-feeding displays are also very helpful for that. We're not saying put paint cans in a gravity-fed shelving or racking display, but maybe put some of your impulse items in there. Maybe put some of your nails in there, just to keep everything clean, kind of cut down on some of your employees' work as far as forward-facing products, etc. And then you also have those those shelving units that a lot of times you'll see at a high-end electronics store, or sometimes at pharmacies, where they'll actually be locked and need a sales associate to come in and help you. This has two benefits. One, it's going to cut down on your loss, hopefully, and in all means, probably, but also will get your sales associate over to that high-ticket item and help to sell that item, and it's going to draw attention for your sales associate. So really, you've got a lot of different ways to utilize this type of merchandising. Pharmacies are notorious for this kind of shelving, so I definitely highly suggest going out and checking out your local pharmacy and seeing what they're using and how to translate that back into your store. The next one, I love this one. It's so easy that it's really exciting to me. This is at a store, a local clothing and gift store here in Indianapolis called Delaneys, and it's this new wave racking idea where if you can kind of scan up to the top of your screen, you'll see this gridlock of metal, and then the racking actually hangs off that gridlock. Clothing wasn't the only thing that they utilized this racking for, but what this allows you to do is to move your store around really easily, which creates a fresh look, creates that need for your customer to walk around and find what they're looking for a lot more easily than maybe traditional racking could do. What's key about this, and maybe a gridlock isn't for you, what you need to take away from this is mobility. Keep everything fresh through your merchandising. Maybe put stuff on wheels. Have some moving merchandising units or shelving racking, that are easily movable so that your employees can easily shift stuff around in your store. This is a cool unit that we saw at Land's End. Whereas a lot of stores that we were seeing, specifically in the clothing stores, were using vertical merchandising units, Land's End kind of shook the paradigm and kind of put this one on an angle. Not only did they kind of shift the way that the merchandise or the racking was set, they also equipped it with a chalkboard, which was really cool and I think is totally doable in a hardware store, simply for the fact that at the end of the day, you just wash it off and rewrite whatever the next promotion or whatever the next end cap is. Really simple. We were kind of laughing on like why we hadn't thought of this already. The one drawback is that sometimes these vertical merchandisers can take up a lot of space, but if you use them sparingly, we think that they could utilize some unused real estate, and the chalkboards you can really use anywhere. The next example that I want to show is from, again, the North Face, and this shelving isn't going to look probably too different than what you've seen before, but why we wanted to spotlight this was what they did in the background of the store. They were, again, able to carry that brand through. They were able to carry that kind of athletic feel through to their background. A lot of times we see retailers just put up shelving with blank boards or, dare I say, even unfinished backgrounds. And it's so simple to put something in the background to, again, further that idea of brand. The clear racking is kind of a different shift on the traditional shelving as well. If you're not looking to do something as detailed as this, even painting the background of, say, different departments is an easy way to categorize your departments and to create some allure from your merchandising. Again, you want to make it easy for your customers. So by just a simple way, you can show them, yep, reds with my hand tools, blues with my plumbing, etc. So just an idea. And now we're already on to grouping, and Jesse actually is going to take over this part.
All right, thank you, Jamie. And the next thing I'm talking about, the next group of photos will be grouping products. And this has to do with how you merchandise or group products, which can be almost as important as what products you offer. So grouping products, as we all know, this is a classic add-on reminder. It's classic cross-merchandising. It's project sales. It's also a way to bridge departments, and it's a good way to inspire customers about products that they can buy together. And there's a few ideas here that we saw, and we want to go through. The first one, being a store that has hardware in its name, it's restoration hardware, and this is something that a lot of you probably do already. Some of you, if you have a home center, you create a little vignette or a little display, and here's a bathroom set up, and it shows the way a bathroom might look in a home. It mimics the look of a home. And what's interesting here is that they were able to put all these products against a single wall, I think, to save space. Some stores will take a little cubby hole or a little room and do this, where you actually, take up that room and you make it look just like a little bathroom. But here, they've lined it all up against the wall, and it saves some floor space. And I think it's still effective because you put all those products together. Another store, bookstore, Barnes & Noble, and this is the store within a store idea. And a lot of you, I know, do this with your paint department, and other departments lend themselves well to this. The thing with a store within a store is that it of course highlights an individual department, and it's not just, you can't do this with every department in your store. Of course, you're not going to make a store within a store everywhere, but it's good for departments where customers might spend a lot of time. You may want to have a spot where they can step away from the regular flow of traffic among the aisles and spend a little time, like in the paint room, which is why the paint is such a good department for that. They can sit down, bring the drapes from home or the bedspread or whatever it is, and look through colors and not feel like they're pressed for time. They can linger for a while. Take that store within a store concept one step further. We find, and JCPenney has created Sephora, which is not just, they don't call it just the beauty supplies department or the makeup department. They give their store within a store a whole new identity. And so instead of just, like I said, making it the beauty supplies department, they've renamed it. They've created its own identity, its own brand. It's a whole different experience. You're able to walk into this area and have a new experience and a destination. Customers, they advertise this is almost as a separate store, but even though it's still within the same store, you have to walk through the store. Of course, it's in the middle of JCPenney's, and you have to walk through it to get to it, which is what you want them to do. But this is another way that you can maybe create a whole different kind of brand or an identity for a department. If your paint sales is your strongest department and it draws a lot of attention from the surrounding area, think about renaming it or moving beyond just the paint department. Here's another store, Crate and Barrel, and this is kind of project sales. If we want to think of this grouping products together, they've grouped all the products that you need to make a cup of tea. You have the canisters, the teapot, the teacup, the coaster, the napkins, everything right there together. And of course, we want to do this in hardware stores because we want to group everything together for certain projects. But what they've also done is not just grouping it together. They've done it stylishly. They've mixed shapes and colors. And even though it's kind of like a little project, you're going to buy all this stuff together. They're suggesting that if you don't come just to buy the teapot, you might buy everything else. So it's really encouraging those add-on sales. And along with that same retailer, we have, again, mixing shapes and colors. Now, I'm not sure what all of these products have to do with each other, what a bowl of grass has to do with a mirror and a jar, but what they've done, what makes this appealing, I think, to anyone, is the mix of shapes and colors, the contrast. It's more on the artistic side. They've gone a long way to being artistic and to having kind of this white space around it. Even if we look at the price tags, look at the price tags. They're bold. They're in the bottom corner there of the shelf, the bottom right corner, and it almost gives it a museum-like quality. It's the kind of thing that you might expect to see at a museum. The bold lettering, the white background, and the product that really stands out from the shelf. The same retailer, Crate and Barrel, and here we have it's an upscale design. They wood flooring and even the wood paneling on the wall, or at least the effect of wood paneling, and those things create that high-end look to it, as well as the clean white shelves, and with all the colors there. Those kinds of things go a long way towards grabbing that customer's attention. And the other thing, if you're going to do a design like this, you're going to have to keep it clean because those white shelves and just a few products on those shelves are going to show up dirt a lot more than other types of shelving might. We move on to Barnes & Noble. We're going to go back to them. Here is a bunch of books, and this is located close to the cashier, in the checkout counter. These are impulse items, but they're also items that are grouped together because they're probably on sale. We'll just speculate here. Probably the common denominator here could be sale price. It could be maybe these are new books. They could be the editor's pick. They could be the book of the month. You don't necessarily have to group products together just because they are in a project. Maybe you can say this is the product of the month in our store. Maybe this is the favorite widget that all the customers voted on. They said this was their favorite widget. Maybe it's the best sellers. Maybe you highlight in your store, say these are the best selling products in the tool department, or these are our best selling power tools. You might, and some retailers have taken this in their paint department. They've made a paint wall, or they've taken paint frames and shown customers what paint colors other customers are choosing. So you can walk in the store and say, oh, I wonder what are some of the popular paint colors that people are having you mix here in the store, and they have all those displayed. So it's the idea of grouping those products, not necessarily based on category or based on project, but on something else that can be appealing to the customer. And if we look in Restoration Hardware store, and the Restoration Hardware back again, we see grouping products together. We have this high-end look with the recessed shelving. We have the mirror on the side, what's unique here that we haven't seen yet so far is that the prices aren't on each item or on each bin. They've listed all the prices on a card, and they've grouped all the different products together that you might buy together. You might buy a towel and a washcloth and a hand towel and some soap all together, and they've listed all the prices and the product on that one little card there in front. So that just reinforces the idea to the customer, all of these products they all go together, and you should buy them together. It kind of makes that subconscious message that these are made to be bought together. We'll go on to customer inactivity, and I'll pass it back over to Jamie.
Thanks, Jesse. I'd also like to encourage you, if you do have questions, to go ahead and keep typing those to us, and we'll address those at the end of the presentation. We actually have had a few, so we'll look forward to answering those at the end. So customer interactivity. This is a really cool topic to talk about when we're talking about merchandising because it's such a high demand right now from consumers. When a consumer goes into another store, they're used to being able to touch, try, practice using whatever they're buying. So that it's something that they're used to. They're constantly, again, inundated with multimedia. They're used to multitasking. So you want to give them that ability to do that in your store. One of the great examples of this, and again, we go back to Apple, is the ability for customers to actually pick up and try a product. What's unique about Apple is that they only offer a handful of products, right? The iPad, the iPhone, whatever, but they only have a couple products. But what they do allow you to do is pick them up, use them, try them. They even encourage you to say you need to go see what they call the Genius Bar. That's their customer service bar. They encourage you to make your reservation on one of their products. So again, they're a great example of creating that customer interaction. Now, am I saying that, you should have customers check in on a computer? Not necessarily. Obviously, Apple is selling technology, and so they're embracing technology in all ways of their merchandising. But what I do want you to keep in mind is that your customer could have been at the Apple store right before they came to your store, so you want to do something to give them that same ability. You don't want them lacking anything in your store. One of the great things that customer interactivity allows home improvement retailers, specifically independents, to get the message to get across is their quality products. You're known for quality products, and you're known for customer service. So if you put out the product and they're able to touch it, they're able to use it, your sales associate can come over and show them how to use the product. They can pick it up. They can see it's not just a flimsy piece of plastic. It's a good quality product that they can use. A great example of this was actually done in the home improvement industry at Kohl's Hardware, where they actually had working toilets and working faucets and a working garage. So it's definitely something that you can do. It's not too out of the box. Along the same lines, this was at a store called All Saints Spitalfields, I believe, up in Chicago, and they're utilizing, it's kind of hard to see, but if you look over to the right of the racking, right to the right of the white shirts on the right, there's an iPad. And what this allows your customers to do is it caters to their desire, their comfortability of being online. So a lot of times retailers tell us we're concerned about losing business to online. This is a great way to kind of capture that desire for customers to be online, get the information they want online, but you can also direct them back to the products in your store. You know, you don't have to have it open to the whole web so they can price check or anything like that. You can actually have your own software on there that answers their questions and then directs them back to the products within the store where they can immediately buy them and promote that brick and mortar store. One really cool thing about having something like an iPad or a tablet in your store is the increasing desire and use of QR codes. If your customer or consumer doesn't have a smartphone or doesn't have a QR reader on their phone, giving them a tablet in your store or allowing them to use one in your store will help you utilize QR codes a little bit more to your advantage. A great way for home improvement retailers to utilize this in their store might be to give how-to information. Jesse talked a lot about PlanetDIY.com, which is NRHA's resource for giving retailers like you how-to information. Well, why not log on and keep an iPad right next to a project and show them how to do that project right on PlanetDIY.com. It's free. All you need to do is set up the tablet. Here's another example of that interactivity, again, with the virtual kiosk idea. When we talked to Mark Reed from the Retail Solutions Company, he said that customers want to be in control. Unfortunately, we're noticing more and more of a trend of customers feeling more comfortable with their phones. I was talking to someone yesterday that said her son and his friend just texted and they were standing next to each other. You know, it's just this trend that consumers are doing. But if you use it really creatively, you can utilize that desire or that trend in your brick and mortar store while still having your sales associates impact, as you can see here, kind of creating the whole environment. Again, back to that environment. This one was actually at Sam's Club, so as you can see, it works in all kinds of outlets. One of the classic places that I've seen activity in kind of a unique way is Sephora. And Jesse actually talked about Sephora earlier, but it's, again, a makeup store, a fairly high-end makeup store. But what they do is, most of their end caps, actually, they'll set up some sample products. And they'll even set you up with, you know, the tissues and the makeup appliers and everything to go ahead and play with their product. Try them out. Make sure it's what you want. So you're creating loyalty through this. They even suggest, or they even require their sales associates at the end of a purchase, up at the cash register, to ask the employee or to ask the customer if they had a chance to play around with some makeup. Again, it's a great way to introduce customers to new products, as well as creating more time in your store, which we've seen linked to more money spent in your stores. So what are some ways that you can utilize this? I don't know how many of you are selling makeup, but I'm going to venture to say not a ton. So how do you use this in your home improvement store? Maybe you do events to encourage DIY projects. I've even seen one retailer who set up a workshop where you could actually nail in boards or you can actually create things. It doesn't necessarily have to be any other goal other than to get people in, get people talking, and creating that loyalty that we're here with you through the whole project. We're not just going to sell you something and hope for the best. We're going to be there through the whole thing, and we'd love for you to try out our projects. We have nothing to hide. We have quality products and Okay, so that's that's it for that. But now Jess is going to talk about that ever so important creating an environment.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. And before we continue on with that, I just want to address one comment that we had come across here. And we talked earlier about using displays that can maybe help in loss prevention, which types of displays. And we had one person comment, and a lot of you may be able to relate to this, that there is a lot of industry data that documents that those locking display cases can actually create more lost sales or profits than the benefit of the theft prevention itself. That might be something to think about. Just off the cuff here, I don't have any of that research in front of me to give you more details or to elaborate on it, but I at least wanted to mention it. So as you're thinking about these kinds of displays that you're putting up, and maybe considering a locking display case, or whether or not you do have to think about the balance between, is this driving a customer away more than it is creating sales in the store. So like, again, I just wanted to mention that. I don't have any kind of details right now.
And I actually, I also read that as well, and I think some of that, from what I've talked to a lot of retailers, like Jesse said, it's good to balance it, but also to teach your employees how to properly use those locking devices. I know that sometimes that will deter a customer if an employee isn't keeping an eye out for that locking display and isn't right up there when somebody's looking at those products to help them. So maybe, you got to be careful when you look at some of that data to make sure that you're getting the whole story.
Right, you want to get the whole story and see what's best for your store as well, and your market. But thanks for that comment. I'm going to move right on to the last set of slides, the last set of photos, creating an environment. This is how you immerse the customer in a store. And it's really how do you send your brand a message? How are you going to draw the customer in? And more importantly, how can you keep it consistent throughout the store? First photo is from Lululemon Athletica, which is a yoga store, a running store. It has athletic apparel, has a very niche market, a very targeted customer. But what they've done on the outside of their store is showing their products in use. They have this signage which is blurry and fast, and it shows it directly as soon as someone walks up. It makes the connection with the person that is going to shop there. It really tells what the store's about. It's obviously athletic apparel, and it creates an environment right off the bat. You immediately make the connection with the customer. The next one is, again, Jamie introduced this store earlier, All Saints Spitalfields, and it's a clothing store. But they've done a lot with the merchandising and the racking in the store. And again, this is one of those photos that crosses over. It talks about an environment, but it also is merchandising racking. They've hung clothes on this sort of machine. It's an antique-looking machine. I'm not really sure what it is. It probably has something to do with the clothing industry. But it's probably also not something that you'd expect to see in a store holding as a merchandiser. So kind of taking that out of the box idea and doing something customers don't expect, but also using something non-standard to put products on. And your imagination is the limit. Whether or not this piece of equipment, it's interesting, and it creates that environment in the store. And if you look up in the same store, you'll see all these lights. And when you create an environment in the store, you have to make sure that environment is something you do from top to bottom, from ceiling to floor. Here they've done something else unexpected. They've taken stage lights, spotlights, hung them around, a lot of them, of course, so it's nice and bright. It's not what you'd expect in any kind of retail store, but it creates a unique environment, and it helps carry that same message from top to bottom. I'm going to change directions here, and this is an art gallery. It's a local art gallery here in Indianapolis. You can come and buy different pieces of art. The displaying is in boxes there, and what I want to draw your attention to here is lighting. Each little box has its own bit of lighting with it. It gets you away from that stark white gondola feel where everything's the same, and it creates a high-end look. And how you can make this work in your store, well, I've seen retailers that will, even something as simple as painting the gondolas a different color. You look at them and you think it's a different kind of racking, but it's just your basic metal gondolas, but they're painted something else other than the off-white. Or even putting a paper background around them. And in terms of the lighting, you can do anything with lighting to highlight certain products. Something as simple as taking a strand of Christmas lights and tucking them up under the edge of the racking and letting them shine down, or using spotlights, track lighting, all kinds of things, which will create that environment and very simply and easily. We're back to restoration hardware here, and this is, as soon as you walk in the door, it's more like you're walking in to somebody's home instead of you're walking into a store. They want to create the environment that it's comfortable. This is where you go to buy stuff for your house. And they've set up a whole living room here with products, of course, that they sell in their store. So it's not just, again, it's mimicking the house. And I know this is something that I've seen retailers do with their housewares department, with their home goods department, even things with kitchens. You can set up a small kitchen so it looks like you're walking into the kitchen, but you also sell small appliances and cabinets and flooring and all the other things. Now we get into Maspero, which is, I know, has been a big inspiration to a lot of you. I've talked to several retailers who, when they talked about their sporting goods department and how they made that a big part of their store, they said, well, I went to Maspero and looked around what they did, and I got inspired and came back. And of course, they didn't put a waterfall in the store. They didn't put full-size taxidermied bears and fish tanks, but they did do a few little things to create an environment. So if you've ever been in a Maspero store, you know what I'm talking about. This is their national headquarters in Springfield, Missouri, right here. And this photo, what's important here is as soon as you walk up to the door, you just kind of look in amazement. You see the big chandelier, you see all the lights, you see the glass, you see the arched doorway. Maspero has made a name for itself by becoming an attraction in itself. As soon as you walk in the door, they have turnstiles. Now, why do they have turnstiles? Well, they want to keep track of all the people that come through the store, which is on average 2 million people per store per year. But they also want to create the illusion that you're going into an attraction. Well, you really are going into an attraction. When else do you walk through a turnstile? You walk through a turnstile when you go to Disney World or you go to a baseball game. You're going someplace fun. So they've added this little bit of little unique element at the front of their store. You walk through the store, you're going to see a lot of products, but you're also going to see a lot of other stuff. Maspero is a place where schools take kids on field trips. Why? Because it's not just a retail place, but it's a place where you can learn. They've integrated the learning experience as well as the retail experience. And finding little ways to do that, finding ways to appeal to children, to make the store experience appeal on all levels. You know, you'll have all ages walking through a Maspero store, looking at not just the merchandise, but looking at the waterfalls and the fish aquariums and all the things that they have to offer. It's a way to keep customers in the store longer. Customers spend a lot of time in the Maspero store, and as a consequence, they buy a lot more. So creating an environment in your store helps keep them in the store longer. This is also from Maspero, and one thing that's unique about Maspero stores is each one is different in the way they're merchandised. There's a theme for each one. A good way to create an atmosphere in your store is to use elements from the local community, and that's what each of these stores do. They take pictures, they take antiques, they take themes from the community and integrate them into the store. And that's something I've seen many independent retailers do as well. And I think it's a very effective way to creating a good environment, a familiar environment, one that customers want to keep coming back to. And one last photo from Maspero here. This is again a store within a store. It's the Fly Shop. You walk in there, you as a consumer or as a shopper, you figure anything I need for fly shopping, I'm going to find here. Any kind of product knowledge, any kind of product, I bet I'm going to find it here in this Fly Shop. So that's another thing that creating that environment can do. If you're going to create an environment that you're the project expert, make sure you have the people to back it up. You have the product selection. Don't make this be an illusion. And you can use this kind of store within a store to create your store as a destination, create that department as a destination. A couple more slides here, and we're about out of time, but actually 3 more, just run through them pretty quickly, that I want to point out a couple key elements in each one. This is a store called Burberry, and it's a high-end clothing store. What they've done here is included a screen, and that's not a window, it's a screen, a video screen, and it shows fashion models walking down the runway. So the connection, obviously, that the retailer wants you to make is that buy our stuff, you'll look like a model, or that the models shop here. So finding technology, finding ways to create a connection with your customer or appeal to them, what do they wish they could be like if they bought these products. It's also using technology, using that movement, that excitement in the photo or on the screen to keep their attention. And this is from a store called Delaneys. I think we mentioned it earlier. They sell clothing and accessories. Right here, right up front, they've created a warm feeling. It's kind of almost an antique shop feeling to it. They have a lot of products in this small space, and it allows you to browse pretty easily. It allows you to browse around all these products. And this is just another way maybe you can treat your home accessories or your housewares areas or the gift area of your store. I know a lot of retailers, this is probably this picture is a lot closer to what a lot of retailers have done with their gift area, and it's a great way to display a lot of products in a small amount of space. And finally, here we go. This is a store called Tates. It's another kind of a home accessories store. At least that's what this part of the store has. And there's a table setting. The important thing to think about here is that this is a great way to display products, but customers, of course, are going to want to come and pick up the product and look at it and may not put it back in the exact same spot it was in. So if you're going to have a display like this, make sure employees are vigilant in making sure that this always is tidy and neat and is the way it should look, so it doesn't become messy or it looks like it'll start looking kind of junky. And don't let these kind of displays get stale. So right in the nick of time here, we are done, and I want to thank you for your time. Don't forget that as you go out shopping, go to the mall, you're always a retailer. You'll always be looking for things like this. You can do this very same thing that we did. Go out to stores and look around and find things that will help in your store. If you have any other questions, feel free to email us. If you want to see this whole presentation again or share it with someone else, it will be available on nrha.org in just a day or two. And that's all we have. We thank you very much for your time.